everything felt fucked. That's the only way I can describe it. At 29, I was staring at a life that looked fine on the outside, decent job, a small apartment, a few thousand followers on X. But inside, I was a wreck. Mark Manson's Everything is Fecked hit me like a lightning bolt when I read it. We are wired to feel like everything is fucked because our brains are designed to always find something to complain about. That line stopped me cold. I was living it, trapped in a cycle of negativity, chasing meaningless wins, and feeling like no matter what I did, it was never enough. That book didn't just change my outlook. It forced me to confront the chaos in my head and start rebuilding from the ashes. Let's rewind to 2023. I was pulling in $55,000 a year as a graphic designer, working remote, living what I thought was the dream. But I was miserable. I'd spend 12 hours a day glued to my laptop, half working, half doom-scrolling X, comparing my designs to influencers with 100,000 likes. I'd stay up until 4 a.m., refreshing my posts, obsessing over why my latest project only got 47 likes. My friends stopped inviting me out. I'd bailed on them too many times, claiming I was busy. Truth was, I was avoiding them because I felt like a fraud. My girlfriend, Emma, broke up with me after I snapped at her for suggesting I take a break from work. "You're not even living," she said. "You're just existing." I brushed it off, but deep down, I knew she was right. The lowest point hit one rainy October night. I was alone, scrolling X, when I saw a post from a former coworker, Jenna. She'd just launched her own design studio, racking up clients and awards. I should have been happy for her, but instead I felt like I'd been punched. Jealousy consumed me. I spiraled, replaying every missed opportunity, every half-finished project I'd abandoned because it wasn't perfect. I was 29, and my life felt like a treadmill, running hard but going nowhere. That's when I found Everything is Fucked on a friend's coffee table. I started reading, and Manson's words cut deep. The problem isn't that things are fucked. The problem is that we think they're supposed to be perfect. That hit me like a slap. I'd been chasing an impossible ideal, and it was destroying me. Manson's book made me see how my brain was wired to focus on what was wrong: my follower count, my bank account, my failure to be a design superstar by 30. I was addicted to the pain of comparison. I'd spend hours tweaking a single Instagram post, not because it mattered, but because I needed validation. I'd say no to freelance gigs if they didn't pay enough, even though I was barely covering rent. My ego told me I deserved better, but my reality was a cluttered apartment, a fridge with nothing but takeout, and a sleep schedule that had me passing out at dawn. Reading the book, I realized I wasn't just unhappy. I was stuck in a feedback loop of despair, and I was the one feeding it. That realization was the spark. I started small, forcing myself to face the mess. I tracked my time for a week and found I was wasting 50 hours on social media and YouTube, numbing myself to avoid the void. I wrote down my thoughts, raw and unfiltered, in a cheap journal I bought for $3. One entry read, "I'm terrified I'm not good enough, and I'm taking it out on everyone." Manson's idea of choosing your pain stuck with me. You can't avoid pain, but you can choose what pain you're willing to endure. I decided I'd rather endure the pain of growth than the pain of stagnation. I cut my screen time to 3 hours a day, started saying yes to smaller gigs, and reached out to an old mentor I'd ghosted. By mid-2024, I'd landed a $7,000 freelance project and reconnected with friends I'd pushed away. It wasn't a fairy tale. I'd slipped back into old habits, checking X obsessively or snapping at a client who didn't love my first draft. But Manson's book gave me a lens to see through the noise. "Hope isn't something you find, it's something you build," he wrote. I was building, slowly, messily. I wasn't a superstar, but I was moving. My income hit $65,000 by the end of 2024, not because I got lucky, but because I stopped waiting for perfection. I was learning to live with the mess, to find meaning in the grind. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was waking up. Waking up to the chaos in my head was one thing, but clawing my way out of it was another. Everything is fucked by Manson. Didn't just point out the problem. It gave me a framework to fight back. His line, "You don't get to control what happens to you, but you get to control what you do about it," became my lifeline. I was done being a passenger in my own life, letting comparison and perfectionism steer the wheel. I was still a mess, spending hours on X, dodging feedback, chasing a version of success that didn't exist, but I was ready to rebuild. Over months of grinding, failing, and getting back up, I crafted a system to shift my outlook and take control. Here's how I did it, step by step, no sugarcoating, just what worked. First, I started auditing my time like a detective. Manson's idea of choosing your struggle hit me hard. Life is about choosing what you're willing to suffer for. I realized I was suffering for nothing, wasting 50 hours a week on social media, refreshing posts for likes that didn't matter. So, I downloaded an app called Rescue Time to track every minute I spent online. The numbers were brutal. 12 hours a day on my laptop, with 6 on X and YouTube alone. I set a hard limit, 3 hours max for non-work screen time. I used a physical timer, the kind you'd find in a kitchen, to enforce it. When it buzzed, I'd shut my laptop, no excuses. That freed up 30 hours a week. I used it to sketch new designs, read 10 pages of a book, or just sit with my thoughts. Within 2 months, I'd finished 12 books and landed a $4,000 freelance gig because I had the mental space to pitch. Next, I tackled my addiction to perfection. Manson says, perfectionism is just procrastination in a fancy outfit. That was me, sitting on half-finished designs because they weren't good enough. I'd spend days tweaking a logo instead of submitting it, terrified of criticism, so I forced myself to embrace good enough. I set a rule: finish every project in 80% of the time I'd normally take. For a logo that'd usually take 20 hours, I'd cap it at 16. The first few were rough. Clients asked for revisions, but I learned to iterate instead of obsess. One client loved my raw style and paid $2,500 for a branding package. By letting go of perfection, I was shipping work faster and building a portfolio that got me noticed. Step 3 was facing feedback head-on. Manson's take on growth stuck with me. If you're not being criticized, you're probably not doing anything important. I used to dodge feedback like it was a bullet, but I flipped the script. I started emailing clients after every project, asking, "What's one thing I could do better?" The first reply stung, "Your color choices are too safe." But I swallowed my pride, studied color theory for an hour a day, and my next project landed a $3,000 contract because the client loved my bold palette. I also reconnected with my old mentor, Lisa, who'd called me out for ghosting her. She gave me blunt advice. Stop trying to look like a rock star and focus on the work. That shift led to a referral for a $6,000 gig. The fourth step was building small, meaningful habits. Manson writes, "The smallest actions, done consistently, create the biggest change." I started with one. No phone for the first hour of my day. I'd wake up, make coffee, and journal instead of scrolling. That hour became my anchor. 10 minutes of writing about what I was grateful for, like a solid night's sleep or a new client. It sounds cheesy, but it rewired my brain to notice the good. I also set a goal to pitch one new client every week, even if it was just a cold email. Most said no, but one yes turned into a $5,000 project. Those tiny habits, journaling, pitching, staying off my phone, added up. By late 2024, I'd boosted my income to $70,000 and felt calmer, sharper. The final step was giving myself permission to fail. Manson's line, "Failure is the forge where progress is shaped," gave me courage. I used to quit anything I wasn't instantly great at: motion graphics, public speaking, even cooking. So, I picked something new: video editing. I sucked at first. My transitions were clunky, my audio out of sync. But I kept at it, spending an hour a night on YouTube tutorials. 3 months later, I edited a promo video for a client that earned $2,000 and a 5-star review. Failure didn't scare me anymore. It was just part of the process. That mindset let me take risks, like pitching bigger clients or trying new design styles, without crumbling when things went wrong. These steps weren't easy. I'd slip back into scrolling binges or get defensive when a client didn't love my work. But the results were real. I cut my screen time from 12 hours to 3, read 18 books in a year, and increased my income by $15,000. My friendships came back to life. I even threw a game night for my old crew, something I hadn't done in years. Emma and I started talking again. Not as a couple, but as friends who respected each other. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I was building hope, not chasing it, and that made all the difference. I'm not here to tell you I've cracked the code to a perfect life. Everything is Fucked by Manson didn't turn me into a guru or erase every doubt in my head. What it did was give me a way to see through the fog, my own bullshit included. Manson's words, "You're never going to feel like you've got it all figured out, so stop waiting for it," became my reality check. I was still wrestling with the urge to scroll X for hours or beat myself up over a design that didn't land. But I'd gone from feeling like my life was a dumpster fire to building something worth fighting for. My income was up $15,000. I was reading books again, and I had friends who didn't just exist in my notifications. I'm still a work in progress, but I'm moving. And if I can pull myself out of that dark spiral, you can too. Look at your life right now. Are you caught in the same trap I was? Maybe you're refreshing X, chasing that hit of validation, or maybe you're stalling on a dream because it's not perfect yet. Whatever it is, you're not stuck. The steps I laid out, tracking your time, ditching perfectionism, embracing feedback, building small habits, and leaning into failure aren't just ideas. They're my lifeline. They took me from 12 hours a day on my phone to 3, from half-finished projects to a $70,000 income, from ghosting friends to hosting game nights. You don't need to be a prodigy or have it all together. You just need to start right where you are with what you've got. Here's the real talk. The chaos in your head isn't going away. Manson says, "The goal isn't to get rid of the mess, it's to learn to live with it." That's the game. Start small, tonight. Download an app like Rescue Time and see how much time you're burning on distractions. Or grab a notebook and write down one thing you're grateful for, even if it's just your morning coffee. Set a rule. No phone for the first 30 minutes of your day. Pitch one idea, even if it's messy. Expect to screw up. I did, plenty. My first video edit was so bad the client asked for a redo, but I kept going, and that same client paid me $2,000 for my next project. Every step you take builds momentum. I started with a $3 notebook and a single email pitch, and a year later, I was designing for clients I'd only dreamed of. This is about choosing your pain, growth over comfort, progress over perfection. Manson's book showed me that hope isn't something you wait for. It's something you create, one gritty step at a time. I'm still building mine, and I want you to build yours. So, if you're ready to stop feeling like everything's fucked and start owning your life, smash that subscribe button right now. Join me. We're figuring this out together. Drop a comment below. What's one thing in your life that feels fucked right now? Maybe it's your screen time, your confidence, or a goal you've shelved. Share it, and let's start untangling the mess. You're not alone, and you're tougher than you think. Let's do this.